My father was a player for like 40 plus years. He passed away in 2017, but he was an amazing player. I mean, he picked it up when he was like 10 and did not put it down. He was really into Southern rock and a lot of things, but he could play anything. He could pick up and play anything. And if you put a guitar in his hands, he's one of those dudes that would just sit there and keep going, never playing the same thing, and just stare at you, whatever you said, and would be totally in another world. So it was like one of those things. I didn't live with him as a kid, but I used to visit him on weekends. And one of the things was like, I would sit there and just watch him play. So you could hear him coming from like blocks away down the road. He would play so loud. He just had stacks and just like, and he would play along with like cassettes and stuff. So it was just this crazy setup that he had. But so basically I got into it through him, and the first guitar that he gave me, I was about 8. It was a Stewart Orophonic, which is this like kind of arch top, kind of Sears-ish thing. I like, you know, like the guitars that Sears would sell or whatever. And it's got this weird cutout logo on the headstock. It's like almost like if it was laser cut or something. It's a really weird one, and it was set up where somebody actually added a pickup and made it a lefty. So he brought this lefty thing. The knobs are up here. It's like, I mean, it was like this big compared to me at the time because I was little.
And like to specify, you're not a lefty.
I'm not a lefty. Okay. I'm a righty.
Wait, so do you have the guitar
it was
now?
set up for, I do have it still, yes. And it was basically, it was a lefty, a modified righty set up for a lefty, set up for a righty string-wise. And the strings must have been like 20 years old because they were rusted and they were like an inch off the fingerboard. So I'm sitting there trying to play this thing and I'm like, Dad, like I'm never going to be a fucking guitar player. There's no way I can do this. And I think I need a tetanus shot at this point.
Did you know at that point that the guitar was like unplayable, or did you think it was you?
I just thought that it was probably that type of guitar because, he was an electric guitar player.
Right.
So I was expecting him to like bring that, but he was like, oh, I found this thing. I'll just like give it to her to fuck around with or whatever, basically.
Oh, so this wasn't the guitar that he was
No. He was a Strat guy. But anyway, so I didn't really I came here with no money and I had to just start working. So I got a job, suit and tie restaurant, Italian place. I worked my ass off for a couple years. The restaurant, the rent got doubled from 40 grand to 90 grand. But because of working 80 hours a week and it was a good paying job, I got to save up for my own apartment. I got good unemployment. And I had a year off to figure out what I wanted to do. And
How old are you at this point? You're like 20?
20.
Wow.
Just a kid.
And yeah. And I said, what do I want to do? I don't want to be in art galleries. I'm not working at fucking Guitar Center because I wanted to do something with music. And
I feel like that's my destiny to finally work it, to fly right into the sun. Just like, hey, what's up, bro?
Do you want picks do you need any picks or strings? Yeah. So you decided you weren't going to work at Guitar Center.
Yeah. And I was following Rick's work for years on
Rick Kelly.
Rick Kelly from Carmine Street Guitars. I was following his work for years because I liked what he was doing with the reclaimed wood, and it was all handmade, no computers, no CNCs. But basically, I came to the decision that I made like a list of like 10 different places or people that I would want to work with, but he was number one, and I kind of knew that if I didn't get in there, something else was probably going to happen because I just loved what he was doing, the historical relevance of it and everything. I mean, Rick.
Yeah.
Dave knows Rick. You've met him.
I met him.
Yeah, it's just a different thing.
Yeah.
So I walked in there one day and I told him my story and he related to it and basically knew that I didn't want to just make myself a guitar and leave. The first thing he said was like, I can't pay you. I was like, it's okay. I got like a year unemployment. I just want to learn the craft. I might need a job on the side, which I did here and there for years. I bartended, did this, did that, leather work, things like that on the side to make some extra money for the bills. But he took me on. He said, "Okay, go sit at the computer, answer the phone. I'll show you the back." And I've been there ever since, and it's been a bit over 12 years now.
So how is the Axe Lord's guitar with our 3 faces and the logo and flames coming?
Oh, we can do that.
Oh, there he is. There he is.
Hey, hey.
There he is.
So we meet again.
Imagine a world where only guitars mattered.
You look all professional and shit.
I know. It's a
Yeah.
What
it's
the
a
fuck?
it's a ruse. What's your tattoo on your left arm? Because you just had it right up on the camera.
This one? That's my right arm. Yeah, I'm terrible. This is my daughter. This is Lily Marie.
Oh, cool.
I
Excellent.
did 500 push-ups before too.
Whoa. That was my first question.
Dave, come on. You know me, man. Music is what I do for a living, but comedy is my passion.
Well, I mean, but clearly you do some push-ups, though. That's not all a joke. I mean, come on.
No, it's true. Actually, you know what's funny, man? You know what I've been doing lately? Because I don't know if you guys find this as guitar players. Do you play guitar, Cindy?
We were just discussing this.
Yes, I'm more of a woodchuck at this point. I build guitars,
Okay.
so I'm building more than playing. But I do. Yes, I can. Yes.
So for me, the weird thing is like I'm very healthy. I got to stay in shape. I always got to try to, fit into those tight pants. But long story short, I find like if I lift weights, if I do weird exercises, it affects the way I play for some reason, which is really strange. Like I can't lift dumbbells too long because it fucks up my hands when I go to play guitar. Like I can totally feel it. So I've been trying to find out ways to do it. And I found out isometrics. So what I do, I fucking kid you not, is when I sit and like watch TV and I'm hanging out, I sit there and I do this and I do like running walking in place. So there's no impact or anything. But I'm telling you, it works.
That's amazing.
Steve had his arms up like a muscle man, and he was
Should we try?
Yeah.
bumping his feet around like
I
a
go,
baby.
try that
just so you know, I do this. I go like this. I go like that. And it works. Like, because I always feel guilty.
it.
Like I'm either playing guitar when I watch TV or I'm doing that. And it's like kooky. My 12-year-old daughter looks at me like I'm nuts.
But isn't there now, as you're the break in case of emergency Def Leppard guitar player, correct?
Free shirt.
Yeah, you got a free shirt or discounted at least. You must get a good. But Phil Collen, though, you can't not work out playing with Phil Collen. I mean, come on.
Oh, of course. Phil has been such an inspiration. I think he's an inspiration to everybody. I think he's 65 now, so he's officially a senior citizen. He's probably in the best shape of any 65-year-old I've ever seen, naturally.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. That's what it's all about. I mean, look, if you take this seriously and you want to sort of continue to be successful in this business, you got to stay healthy. And you got to look good. I mean, let's not forget, man, image is still important,
That's why Tom and I are super ripped.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, but I'm like constantly, remember we played a show and I was just like, I look fat, Dave.
Yeah, but you have body dysmorphia because look at you.
I'm totally
You're sex.
But I mean,
Why would you say that?
at what age did this is really actually all I ever think about is my weight, but, and guitars, but at what age did your body, like, where did you hit the wall where you're like, fuck, I have to be disciplined or I'm just going to look terrible?
19.
That happened a couple times. I got to tell you, man, on the first Trixter tour, I probably gained from the time we went on the road, we started in September of 1990 and came back in October of 1991. You know, it was like that funny story where my manager said, "Oh yeah, you guys are going out for about 2 weeks," and 2 weeks turned into 13 months. So
You're closing that flannel shirt by the end of the tour?
yes. So, well, I wouldn't say that, but it was like, you know, one of those things where I was 20 when I started the tour and 21 when I came back. And, you know, the difference of, you know, the alcohol consumption and the late night Denny's, you know, because this was the first time for all of us. So we didn't know. We were just like, oh, dude, it's 2:00 in the morning. Let's stop at Denny's and get a Grand Slam or two.
Right.
You know, and then, you don't even think about that. And then I remember coming home and seeing pictures from, you know, some of the past shows. And I was like, holy shit, man, I gained like fucking 15, 20 pounds on this run, you know, and that has happened numerous times. But after that tour, you know, for the second record, then it was like I kind of woke up where, you know, when you're a teenager, like when I was a kid, I never thought about any of that stuff because your body just churns everything out. So as we get older, you know, but it's been a constant thing, you know, that you have to keep up with if you want to, you know, if you want to kind of look like you did when you were 21 or 25 or 30.
I feel like your body kind of changes every like 10 years, though. I was talking to Jimmy.
10 year?
What? No, it was,
Every 6 weeks. What are you talking about? Every 10
no,
years?
I mean, like in terms of like, you know, like a noticeable difference in like your metabolism or whatever. I don't know. It was
10 years. Yo, you have no idea what's in store.
Yeah.
Man.
She's a child.
It's like
My body is so different from when I was 12.
yeah. I'm like, oh, I ate French fries once this week. I gained 7 pounds.
I know. Like, yeah. I had a Nilla-wafer this morning. I need a wheelchair.
So wait, let me ask, because I was actually looking, and I do want to talk about it. So Def Leppard's playing at Citi Field like in what, like 3 weeks or something?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
So explain. So I'm just going to lay this out quickly. So Steve Brown, and you correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
When Def Leppard is on tour, because Vivan Campbell has had health issues, and I guess he's living with cancer, right? Which is you are, whenever Def Leppard is touring, are you on call? Like, how quickly how does it work? Because I make up all kinds of shit telling people, hey, my buddy Steve, he's like, but what's the mechanics of it?
The mechanics of it are that, you know, it's been since 2013 is when I got officially hired by Def Leppard to be the backup guitar player for, you know, for Phil and for Vivian and for Sav, whatever, you know, stringed instrument, I can cover the parts. With that being said, I am not currently on like any retainer or anything. Look, at the end of the day, those guys, first and foremost, are my brothers and my friends and everybody in that camp I love dearly. And they pretty much know that should they need me, I'm going to drop whatever I have and be there for them, you know, because they have taken care of me so great over the last, you know, better part of a decade. And, but no, I am not on retainer every year, if that's what you're asking, but I'm always there waiting in the wings. Should they need me, you know, as I've shown in the past, when in 2018, I stepped in for Phil with 24 hours notice because he had a family emergency. Wow. And, you know, that's kind of what I do. So
you knew the stuff already? Like you were prepared? Like you knew his parts?
Well, no, I didn't. I knew all of Vivian's parts, right. And, you know, so that was a, you know, I've told this story before. I've said this before. The key thing is, man, when you're a fill-in guitar player for a band, it really helps when they are one of your favorite musical acts ever. Yeah. So the Def Leppard music is like, it's in my blood, like Van Halen or Kiss. Right. You know, yeah. I don't have to really think about it, but the other thing, you know, people don't realize about Def Leppard because of the way how beautiful and awesome their records sound, and they're so perfect and sweet and, you know, all this. There's some really intricate guitar parts that go on with that. Yeah. Some unorthodox stuff, which I didn't realize until I started learning the stuff. Now, back in 2013, when I signed on, I was on retainer, and they sent me a hard drive with all the songs live, so I could put it in Pro Tools and make my own mixes and zero in on every lick. And I got to be honest with you, man, it was the first time that I really realized the brilliance of a lot of the songwriting, especially some of the guitar parts, the unorthodox guitar parts of the late great Steve Clark. And Pete Willis, for that matter, because Pete wrote some of the stuff as well. So it was very eye-opening for a guy who can play some of the Van Halen stuff behind my back and whatnot, thinking that that's sort of the be-all, end-all. That's the beauty of guitar playing and music in general. When you learn someone else's catalog, you learn different shapes and boxes and chord progressions. I mean, if any of you guys ever want to challenge out there, guitar players, learn Bringing On the Heartbreak by Def Leppard, the whole song, each guitar part, and try to play it. It's fucking hard, man. It's a lot harder than you might think. So, as always, again, that was always one of the great things about doing this. And I had that same experience when I filled in for Dennis DeYoung, learning all of the Styx material, because Styx, I love Styx, but
I want to think that you didn't grow up knowing every Styx song.
Yes.
Come on, throw me a bone here.
No, you have to. I mean, just being alive on Earth, like if you're a certain age, every Styx song. Maybe not playing, but it's in your...
Yeah.
Like the deep cuts?
Yeah, no, definitely not the deep cuts.
But like every hit, just walking on this planet,
Yes.
every Styx hit.
Yeah.
What are they?
Not young Cindy here.
Listen.
So wait,
There's body changes every 10 years.
There's
to be clear.
What? So there's Mr. Roboto.
That's
Which is,
latter era.
And again, this is one of those things where...
Da, 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 da.
Yeah,
sorry,
exactly.
I was just
now.
Yeah.
And then throw into the mix. So you have the guitar playing aspect, and then throw in for both of these bands and all the bands that I play with, the singing aspect of being able to sing, play, put on a rock show, put what they call throw shapes, as the Def Leppard guys go. Oh, he throws great shapes, which is
What? That's the moves?
The moves?
That's a British thing. Instead of like we call it moves and doing the bend, and they call it you throw great shapes.
Wow,
He
I
throws
like
great
that.
shapes.
Just one-
I'm going to be using that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You'll see,
that's-
man, all your British friends. Hey, man, is it true when you guys talk about rock star posing on stage, you call it throwing shapes?
This is something that you told me once, and I want to just reiterate because I find it to be mind-blowing. There's no pre-recorded vocals with Def Leppard, right? It's like real.
Absolutely not. And nothing of theirs is pre-recorded. Even to the fact of where, one of the coolest things is Sav Savage, on bass. Sav still plays bass pedals like, back in the old days.
Oh,
For
wow.
Foolin', he still triggers the intro to Foolin' with his foot. And he's like playing his bass, and he's got, the bass pedals. I forget. He doesn't use Taurus anymore. He has a MIDI thing. But I mean, he's still in Love Bites. He does, while he's playing bass, he does keyboard parts with his foot.
Wow.
And I think that's so cool. And in this day and age of so much fakery, and we don't need to mention any bands, because you guys all know them. That use backing tracks and that are fucking, the singer doesn't sing. He's miming and talking along to a pre-recorded vocal. Def Leppard, and I've said this and I'll say it till the day I die, Def Leppard is one of very few bands that actually still play 100% live, but they are probably the greatest live hard rock band going now. If you factor in all of the aspects, vocals, Joe Elliott to me still sounds phenomenal.
Yeah.
Singing, doing that mixed real voice. And then I said, welcome to my show. He's still got it, man. And again, at 63 years old, they are, when you watch the videos of the new tour, one of the greatest live rock and roll bands that are still out there.
Do you guys play Stage Fright? You play Stage Fright?
I never got to play Stage Fright with them, man. It was
Stage Fright is the hidden gem of Pyromania.
And they're not
great
playing it. I mean, it's one of those kind of scratch my head, but I've offered, the first couple tours I would give. I'm like, Joe, man, can we play Rock Brigade tonight? And he goes, sorry, mate, not tonight. Joe, can we play? One of my favorite songs was on Adrenalize, Tear It Down, which is just killer, and tear it down. I was like, can we play this? Sorry, man, not tonight.
Do you think they know those songs?
Oh, yeah. I mean, those guys are, look, we all have, there's certain Trixter songs that I wrote that I haven't played in 30 plus years that it would take a little bit of, what did Derek St. Hubbard just say? A couple cups of black coffee,
right.
Bring it back. But
it's in there.
I think that with a little bit of rehearsing, they could pull it off pretty quickly.
What was your first guitar? Did we talk about this?
No.
We didn't talk about it.
I know the answer,
It's a
but I'm not
key-
going to say.
Shut up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Steve.
Yeah. So my
Steve.
first guitar was when my mom took me for guitar lessons in 1978. That's right, 1978. To Musically Yours in Maywood, New Jersey. That was the local music store. I walked in with my mom, and she said, "Steven wants to learn how to play guitar. He loves Kiss and he loves Van Halen." And the guy
We
behind
need to
the
get your
counter,
head around the phone right now. I would hear his voice.
the guy behind the counter goes, "Mrs. Brown, is he lefty or righty?" And she goes, "Oh, well, he's lefty." And he goes, "Well, it'll be cheaper if he learns how to play righty." So yeah, because I'm a lefty guy who learned how to play guitar righty. So
Was
who
that
knows
hard?
what it-
Like,
But the first guitar was a rental, acoustic guitar that I had probably for about a year and a half that I could, hardly press the strings down, but it strengthened up these little sausages, and it's been great. First electric guitar was the Sears and Roebuck catalog, the 6995 guitar amp combo, which I don't know, man. I've heard conflicting reports, and maybe it's true. I think those were made by Silvertone.
Probably.
Yeah, I mean, somebody, you can actually like Google the Sears catalog 1979 and the actual guitar. It was like a tobacco sunburst, and I got that for Christmas of 1979.
Was it a guitar? Or were they still making like things that were sort of like 60s type? Like, was it like a bolt-on Masonite deal, or was it like a?
I mean, it was one of those. I mean, it was. I think it had the goofy like wang bar, almost like a fake Bigsby, and it had some dip switches. But no, it was.
Like
It was. I mean, I remember it was fucking. It was probably this big and made of particle board, but it was. It was magical. That Christmas of 1979, I'll never forget it. I got that guitar amp combo with the little the curly Q cable, which I thought was so cool. And I also got a little Big Muff fuzz pedal.
Whoa.
And that was plugging that in after it was like, I was like, I got everything. I'm opening everything up. And I remember running into the back room because, we had family over and like, I did know that probably something loud was going to happen. So I went to the back, our TV room, and I remember plugging everything in. And I remember the first time like plugging in the guitar, and I plugged in the pedal because I sort of knew how to do that. Like I knew in, out, and I don't know, I guess it was meant to be. But I'll never forget like plugging it in, and I put the guitar, and I remember hitting like an A chord and going, it's clean. And I go, oh, I got to step on the pedal. And I remember stepping on the pedal and hearing like, woo, like feedback for the first time. Sounded like like a fire truck was coming down. And I just remember hitting it, and it was like clang, that like fuzz pedal, distortion. And it was like, it was like watching black and white TV for years and seeing color for the first time.
Oh,
hearing that distortion, it was like the greatest sound in the world. And I remember my father coming running back, Steve, turn that garbage down, turn that. And it was like, I'm sorry, Dad, but that was the coolest thing ever.
When did you get your first like I hate to big boy seems like a very dated thing to say, but like your first like grown up, like usable in a professional situation. Your first rig.
Your first big boy guitar.
Yeah, your first big boy guitar.
Let's go back.
Let's go back.
The first big boy guitar was my Ibanez Icemen 2. It was in 1982, Ibanez Icemen 2. And I got
Bolt-on?
it at Sam Ash in Paramus, New Jersey. I still have the guitar. And
Like within reach of you right here?
oh yeah, let me go. I'll go get it.
Because this will work really well on podcast.
Here it is.
Oh, that's awesome.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wild.
six on a side tuners, bolt on.
Bolt on.
Yep.
Original pickups? Are those the original pickups?
Yeah, Paul. The front, the neck pickup is, and a great story about this. So this was the guitar that I did my first ever live shows with. I wrote my first songs with. Dude, this guitar still sounds fucking great,
cool.
plays great. But the cool thing was, I sold this probably, I'm going to say 85. I sold this when I got my first Charvel. I sold this guitar to my childhood friend, this kid, Charles Maggio, who lived in Paramus, New Jersey, where I'm from. And he held on to it all this time.
Oh,
And
that's
during
cool.
the pandemic, I was, he reached out to me and said, hey, man, I don't know if you're interested, but I still have your guitar. And if you ever want it back, I'll sell it back to you for what you sold it to me.
For the low price of $2,000.
Yeah, no. He sold it back to me for $350, what I sold it to him for back in the day.
How cool.
Wow.
It's
That's awesome.
so important, and I
And adjusted for inflation, let us just say for a second, 1982, $350 is like probably, it's not a cheap guitar. That was not a cheap guitar. That's probably like a $1,200 guitar. I mean, it was a real guitar.
honestly, I think it was more when I bought it, because again, I bought it from Sam Ash brand new, and I'm not sure exactly what we paid for it. But when I said in 1985, I sold it to my friend for $350 as used. But so yeah, this was it. This was the guitar that got me, got me going, and just so blessed to have it back.
On the back of the headstock at the top, you got some chipping there. Did you ever put it through a speaker cabinet or anything, or was that just like a bump?
No, man. I mean, this was, you got to understand, this was the guitar that I learned how to do all my scissor kicks with. And,
nice.
So yeah, there was definitely some knocking into walls. It fell. I know this guitar fell a couple times. I'm really amazed I never broke the horn off. But, this is a really a well-made guitar. Made in Japan, baby.
Did you ever try the Cinderella 360?
You know what, bro? I would never do that. PJ and like a couple other guys, you would do that. I was always so afraid. It was one of those things. Coming from the guy who does, jumping off drum risers and, risk breaking my legs every night. That was one thing, man. It just freaked me out.
Do you know who I spoke to about that once?
Who's that?
Jeff LeBar, God rest his soul, who was an awesome interviewer. He was the guitar player in Cinderella.
Mm-hmm.
Great guy.
I asked him about that, and he said, first of all, that the first time he tried it, he almost flipping the guitar around, he almost broke his knee off. But that, because when he was auditioning for the band, but Eric Brittingham explained that.
Wait, that was part of his audition? As he flipped the guitar?
I think if you're going to join Cinderella and you're going to go audition, you probably fucking better be able to flip that guitar.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
It was him and Snake Sabo up for the gig.
Yep.
They picked Jeff LeBar because he looked like Jake E. Lee. But I digress. He said that the secret is you got to put a spacer from the guitar to where the strap is. You add an inch, there's a big screw there with a washer. And that's the secret of the flipping of the guitar.
Of course.
An inch thick washer?
Wait, I don't understand.
I don't know fucking hardware terminology. There's a screw that comes out with something the strap is not flush to the guitar.
Oh,
it's out
physics.
from the guitar. Physics.
It all comes down to physics.
Yes.
I thought it was just seatbelt straps
That too.
that you. So it's.
I would
slippery.
think, yeah, you got to have a strap that really, those DiMarzio straps that are
They're
so
really
slippery that,
Your guys do it though? The other guys in the band would do it?
No, that was not our thing with Trixter. No, we were all about back when we started playing the clubs. Our gimmick was, you're going to love this. We used to play this place, the China Club in Hillsdale. That was the place that we broke out of, if you will. And they had it was like a stage, and to the right of the stage, there was like a DJ booth with a window. And I used to actually run up the wall. Like I used to climb, that
like
was
a skateboarder guy, like whoop.
Yeah, almost like a skateboard move. Yeah, where I'd run up the wall, or you see those guys nowadays on social media who do those workouts where they just they jump off things. And
you're doing parkour, guitar core.
Guitar core.
Like Dave, you do those cool things.
Yeah, I'm an incredible physical specimen. Yeah. So you were doing this while playing?
Yes. So I would have my guitar, and you know how I got it? I thought it was a really cool thing because I think this was the only tour that Ed Van Halen ever did this on, the Diver Down tour. And that was the first tour that I ever saw Van Halen. He did this thing in his guitar solo where he would run and he'd kick and he'd run off the amps and try to knock his amps down. And there's video of it from his solo. And I thought that was the coolest thing. So anytime there was something that I could run up and try to mimic that, because that's all I was doing when I was starting out, was just all I ever wanted to be was Eddie Van Halen. So, if it was, I never trusted any amps, but walls or a DJ booth with with glass in front of it, what the hell?
You haven't had your hips replaced or anything? No knees, no hips?
No, and thank God. And that's
knock on wood.
What I was telling you before about why I do low impact stuff. I don't even run anymore because I'm I paddleboard and I walk, but no running. I got to save my hips and knees. I don't want to have to go through that. I know Dave Roth had both of his hips and knees done. Ed had, I think, both of his hips done.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things, man. Just kind
of. They
of
go. Even Jeff Tweedy from Wilco
had a
both
hip
hips.
Both hips.
Wow. Oh, I didn't know that.
Even if you're not jumping off Marshalls.
I mean, I feel like I haven't done that once in my life. I've never run up a wall
yet.
I'm going to try it.
For you yet.
We got a gig.
Tom, I will show you the technique.
There's a trick? Is there a trick to it?
Well, it's like anything. It's like timing.
Right.
It's kind of like doing a layup in basketball. That's what I can equate it to. It's all a couple of things, and timing all has to, work out. And of course, it was the age in the mid 80s. It was all about choreography to some degree. So you got to do it in time with the music.
Right.
So you got to time your running and your jump.
So many factors. And then you guys you were like a teenager at the time, right?
I was a teenager.
So were they going to your mom, Mrs. Brown, could you please ask your son to quit scaling the DJ booth, please?
Exactly. Yeah, when I would do it at school, Mr. Brown. Well, my father was the vice principal of my middle school and high school, so I had him 7 years of me. So if during lunch I was scaling and doing jumps off the commons area wall, my dad would get a call. Mr. Brown, can you somebody was playing Van Halen on the boombox during lunch.
We have our suspicions. It might have been your son.
I believe because of my lack of talent that gear can fix everything.
That's why I keep buying new guitars. Yeah. We'll get into it. But I just bought the Charvel Warren DeMartini Swords guitars, and as it turns out, I still am about as good as I was before I got it.
Not even a little better?
I don't sound any more like Warren DeMartini now that I have it. Oddly. Which I find so weird. Because I got the guitar has the swords on it. You would think that's not going to do it. I don't know what hope there is.
Right? You plug that guitar in, plug it into your amp, and all of a sudden you can play the solo for You're in Love note for note.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Well, no, actually, you would need the Frenchie because that's what he plays in the the video for that. So I am saving up for the Frenchie so I can play that solo.
There is a Frenchie right now on Reverb at a very good price that you sent me a link to the other day.
This is our basically the basis of this show is the origin is Tom and I texting each other guitars we shouldn't buy and telling each other to buy them.
Yes. If you ever, yeah,
Now
if you,
Tom just gets squirrel
love it.
videos from me.
yeah, if you ever want to buy a guitar and you know you shouldn't, I promise you to always, Steve, if you text me, should I buy this guitar? I'll always answer yes.
Yeah, when in doubt.
All right. Well, please, if I ever text you a 59 Les Paul, please say, don't do it.
Don't do
Whatever
it.
you do, don't do
Oh,
it.
you should totally do it.
Do it. I'd be like, bro, do it.
Wait, so what was the first rig?
Yeah, the first pro rig.
pro
So,
rig, big,
Yeah, the first pro rig.
big
This
boy
is
rig.
Another great story. So
Once they throw all that money at you.
yeah, and exactly. So I had an opportunity to buy, and this is 1989. Elliot Easton from the Cars was selling his Bradshaw rig.
Whoa.
Two 24 space racks, the 212 Mesa Boogie cabinets, just the Bob Bradshaw rig from the 80s. Like, it was based on, it was a Mesa Boogie preamp with the tube power amp, and it had Rockman stuff in it. It had everything, TC 2290, Eventide harmonizer, it was everything. And it was at a really, really good price. So my manager, one of the cool things about Trixter was my manager, this guy, Ken Mako at the time, he was our manager. He was a guitar player, and he was a huge fan. He was a huge Van Halen fan. He actually won one of those Kramer guitar contests where you get flown to NAMM and meet Eddie, and Ed gave him one of his guitars. So
wow.
Ken was always like, we got to have gear. We got to do it. And so somehow we wound up buying this rig for like 10 grand.
I think Ken wanted the rig.
What's that?
I think your manager wanted the rig.
Oh, well, of course. But he justified it by telling the guys in the band, he told the other guys, well, if we use this, Steve, we won't need to add effects. It'll be cheaper when we mix the record. And which was total horse shit. Yeah. But we bought this rig. So, yeah, here was a kid, I signed my first record deal and not even gone out on tour. And I have a huge Bradshaw rig that, like Steve Lukather and everybody, Eddie Van Halen, everybody under the sun had these massive, stupid guitar rigs. But they were great at the time. And Bob Bradshaw became a friend because we went, as soon as I bought it we
broke.
went right out to California to do the record.
And you were with our friend, and you experienced a wet, dry, wet rig.
Oh, Mike Hickey?
Mike Hickey. Did you do the wet, dry, wet?
It was sort of like that, but
for
it
the
was
listener,
more
what
just
is the wet, dry, wet?
It's a clean cabinet and then two stereo effects cabinets, and you stand in the middle and get your head exploded by goodness. Is that correct?
No, they're not. Well, no, it's three. There's a dry signal, and then there's two wet signals, but they're not set the same, right?
Well, yeah, the wet, dry, wet is like what
Help,
Eddie
Steve.
started that. He was the one who started that back in the 90s yeah, I wasn't doing that, but wet, dry, wet is really, really cool. And it's great because for the sound guys, that's why that happened, where a lot of guys who were using the Bradshaw rigs, the sound guys would be like, man, it's great, but I wish I had a direct, just a single dry cab. So that's how that started.
So that's all the chorusing and stuff on the first Trixter record, all the effects are coming out of your amp.
On certain songs, yeah. I mean, so what happened was, and this gets even cooler for me, because when we went out to LA, it was kind of like, we had this producer, Bill Ray, and his brother Jim Ray, who co-produced the record.
The Ray brothers.
The Ray brothers. Jim Ray was a guitar player, bass player, just an unbelievable musician. And he was like, man, we got to get some other amps. So luckily, as fate would have it, we got in touch. Bill Ray was friends with Tim Pierce, the great Tim Pierce, Rick Springfield's guitar player, who, is one of the greatest session guitar players. I think wrote some of the greatest rock guitar solos of the 80s. He's the guy who played the Runaway guitar solo on Bon Jovi's Runaway. That's not Richie Sambora.
Really?
Shut up.
Yeah.
This is how we find out?
Yeah.
What?
That's Tim Pierce, man.
That's it. Oh my gosh.
He's a YouTube sensation. We should have him on, actually.
I didn't know this.
And such a nice guy. But long story short with that was we needed more guitars and amps and stuff. And because I only had a couple Kramer guitars at that point, you know, I was endorsed by Kramer guitars, and I had my Hollow Flash and I had a Kramer Night Swan, and that was it. And they were like, nah, you need more stuff. So we rented all of Tim Pierce's guitars and amps, and they had a thing, you know, in LA, it was called cartage, where the guys would go to the storage locker and they brought over fucking all of Tim's amps and cabinets and about 10 different guitars, Les Pauls, Strats, you know, sitar, all like a choral sitar, like all this stuff for me to sort of paint with, if you will. And it was incredible. And a lot of the first record, which I don't think a lot of people know, a lot of those rock tones that are on there were the original Soldano SL100. But what was cool about it, it was the rack mount. It was a purple rack mount when Mike Soldano started making those. And that's what I actually used on a lot of the record. But we used the Bradshaw rig, of course, on a couple things. I definitely know I used that on the Heart of Steel solo and the Line of Fire solo.
It's sounding to me like you spent $10,000 on a rig that you didn't use that much.
Well, you're right, because it was one of those things where, you know, as inexperienced as we were as a band in making records, the same could be said for our managers, because we were the first band that they ever managed. Even though they were guided by Peter Mensch and Cliff Bernstein from Q Prime, who were, you know, really our sort of godfathers at that time, who were really helping us out. Ken and Joel, our two managers, they had never made a record before, like a major label record, and knew about, you know, budgets and whatnot. So it was kind of like we all learned. But no, we definitely did use it, and I wound up bringing it, you know, using it on tour. And it was kind of funny going out on the first Trixter tour, playing, you know, tiny clubs where my guitar rig took up half the stage. You know, literally half the stage.
I have a question, because we were talking about this. I mentioned it earlier. Did you ever come across Club Chrome in New Jersey? I think it used to be called Club Benet or something like that.
Well, there you go. That's where we played. So we played the original Club Benet, and
I went there when I was 9 the first time with my mother.
There you go. All right. Well, you probably saw us then, but yeah, we played there. The great Tom Benet, man, that guy was very, very good. He was a big, very supporter of the scene, all the original bands, and he was a very fair man, unlike some of the other club owners who would, you know, take all the money and just give us a 6-pack of stale Bud Light.
And who could have you disappeared? I said it, you didn't.
Wait, we have to talk about, you have your own guitar company. We haven't talked about that, right?
Yeah. I had to
get into it.
Okay.
Wait, what were you?
No, let's talk. Because I'm a Hamer fan.
Yes.
Look, Dave just gave me the look.
No, I didn't.
Dave thinks I fuck this podcast up like every 3 minutes.
No, I don't.
When you switch to Hamer from Kramer,
Steve's writing something right now. He's writing a sign that says, fuck you.
Fuck you, Tom.
We were going to talk about my company. Now we're
going to talk about
Hamer.
his company, but I want to just know, because I, at the time, was so like into the Hamers, and suddenly this guy pops out with like the fucking coolest Hamers. How did you... But I'm assuming they had less money than Kramer. Like, what was the game like back then, the endorsement game? Like, they just would send you like a guitar with cocaine? Yes.
Go ahead and answer that, Steve.
They did. No. Well, Kramer Guitars was in Neptune, New Jersey. So that was the hometown company.
Right.
You know, and of course, for me, anything that was associated with Eddie Van Halen was where I wanted to be.
Right.
And my good friend Jack Ponte, songwriter producer, was like, dude, you need to go to the Kramer factory. You know, we're all tight there. And, you know, the Skid Row guys were using them. The Bon Jovi guys were using them. So it was only natural. But, you know, part of the reason Kramer went out of business because they gave so many guitars away. And literally we would go there, me and the guys, and we would walk out of there with 5 or 6 guitars at a time.
Wow.
Like, oh yeah, take whatever you want, blah, 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 sign something, and they made me some really beautiful guitars as well. They made me an awesome Explorer that I used that was in the 1 in a Million video, and they made me the Hollow Flash, guitar that was a Hollow Flash Night Swan that was gorgeous. But Hamer came about because of Def Leppard, because Sav and, the Def Leppard guys were really tight. And Peter Mensch was like, hey, man, there was this guy there, Joel Danzig.
Yes.
Yep. He was the main guy, and he was just such an awesome dude. I still, I keep in touch with Joel every once in a while. He's still building guitars. But for me, Hamer was a no-brainer because of Cheap Trick, and Kiss used Hamer in the late, in the 80s and stuff like that. And they made some beautiful guitars. So he came and met with us, with me and PJ, and he was just so cool. And we went to the Hamer factory in Arlington Heights, Illinois. And I remember the first time we went there, he's like, Joel was really like a quiet guy. And he said, Steve, come here. You want to see this guitar? It's Rick Nielsen's Checkerboard from Dream Police. It was the guitar, his Explorer. And he pulled it out. And I was like, holy shit, this is it. And it was so, it was so relict, and really it was cracked, and it was like yellow and black. It wasn't even white and black anymore. It had weathered so long, and it was the coolest thing in the world. So I was like, we're going to be with Hamer now. And
that's how they got you there. They knew. They were like, Rick, send that. We need it for 2 hours.
Exactly.
Send the Checkerboard.
That was it, man. And at that point, they had morphed into, just like every other guitar company, you had to build Kramer, Charvel, Jackson style shred guitars. So they had, the Chaparral, which was, their version. And what was really cool with that is they were one of the first guitar companies to have the Sustainiac in their guitars.
Right. So
they gave me this candy apple red one that had the sustain. As soon as I kicked on that Sustainiac, I was like, this is the coolest thing in the world, So it was a great relationship, and they built me. The first custom guitar they built me was this Les Paul with a cutaway in the back that almost looked like an Aria Pro that I always loved back in the day. And it was just a gorgeous guitar. It was a salmon, tiger, curly maple top. And it was a beautiful guitar that I used for a majority of the first Trixter tour into the second tour.
Wow. Hamer
rules. Guitars, man.
Yeah.
And if you can find them now, man, they are worth a lot of money.
It's so funny because, from 1992 to probably 2010, you could get them for
$7.
$7.
Yeah.
So now let's talk about SBS, which is Steve Brown Sound, correct?
That's it. The Steve Brown Sound. And
how do you end up being a guitar? What's it called?
Impresario.
Maven? Yes, impresario.
Well, it's always been a dream, but honestly, I never thought it would be possible because you look at all the big companies and they're using big names. So, long story short, my friend Jay Abend, who owns the guitar company Guitar Fetish, was the man who made this dream a reality for me. Jay is a Long Island guy who back in the 80s used to work. He used to be a photographer and he was the artist rep at Guild Guitars. He started Bedrock amplifiers in the 80s, the awesome Bedrock amps that Aerosmith. And the Black Crowes. That's the amp that's used on the first Black Crowes record. Most people think it's a Marshall. It's not. It's a Bedrock. So Jay started that company, and Jay also started Guitar Fetish in the late 90s. When the internet was first starting, Guitar Fetish was the first company to, first parts company that was out there, really, besides All Parts and the other ones or whatever. But Jay started the company where he was an expert. He's also a guitar player. So he knows tone, he knows guitars. He has an incredible vintage guitar collection. But his passion was winding pickups. He wanted to be able to make affordable, awesome pickups. And that's how Guitar Fetish started. And fast forward, 15 years later, him and I became really good friends. And I started buying their, using their kits and making fun. I was always interested, like Eddie, building your own guitars, but I could never do what Ed did, which was like take a 59 Les Paul and saw off parts of it. And I could never afford to do that.
Here's what I'll make you a deal. When you call me and ask if you should buy a 59 Les Paul, I'm going to say yes. But then if you text me and ask if you should saw the neck off,
Right.
I'll say no.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, saw off the horn
Yeah.
like Ed did to he did that to one of his vintage SGs.
I'll flag you on that.
On Dirty Movies. Yeah, don't do that. But so he can't, he started the guitar end of Guitar Fetish, I'm going to say probably 20 years ago, and selling, these really great knockoff Les Pauls and Strats and Tellys. And then I think I'm going to say like 2013, he did a signature line with Earl Slick, the great Earl Slick from David Bowie and John Lennon, the New York Dolls. And they were these really awesome, like relict, simple guitars, one pickup Strats. And they were, it was the first time I ever saw guitars that even looked like this. And they took off. He had a very successful run with that, still very successful. And they're great guitars. For some of the guitars, some of the Slick guitars are like $219. They're made overseas. And so long story short, about 5 years ago, Jay came to me. I was out with my Wizards of Winter band, and we were playing down in Florida, and I was using the EVH guitars because I've been an EVH endorser since 1991, since Ed started working with PV and with Music Man. So I was always with Ed, and, God rest his soul, and thank you for that. I have, if you look over here, I probably have about 25 different EVH guitars. But
all right, one by one, bring them out.
Yeah, one by one. And we'll be, Steve, it's Thursday morning and we're still doing this fucking podcast. But he came to me and he said, Steve, I want to do a shred style, Van Halen style guitar with a Floyd and, and awesome pickups, because I think, that'll be really successful. And he goes, I want you to be the face and the name of it. And that was it. And I was like, okay, where do I sign? And, we started it in, the dream started in, late the Christmas of 2019. And, during the pandemic was when we were able to get the, sort of the prototypes done. And, it's been almost to this day, I won't mention the day, but July of, 2024, it's almost been a year since we've been going, and it's been extremely successful. And the goal was, here's the pitch. Right. Incredible rock guitars at a stellar price. And my guitars, they retail. We have the CS model, which is a custom series. It retails for $259. It's a poplar body with a real roasted Canadian hard rock maple neck.
But I got to ask you, like, where does the rubber hit the road? Like in terms of like a $259 guitar. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's not a lot of money.
It's not.
So I'm going to guess that like your costs, I mean, I don't know these things, but like they're costing you like $150. How do you get these made? Like
you can't.
I can ask. They're selling guitars direct, but I'm not asking him what
you can't say
I'm
what,
not
ask him what his cost is.
It's got to be half of what they're selling them for.
I have no idea. Jay handles all that. I'm just here I design and give him, we work on the pickups and what the aesthetics and frets are going to be. But yeah, they're made, again, with these guitars, like, the other, I guess, dirty little secret about the guitar business is the whole made in the USA, this and that. 90% of the stuff that's out there, anything that's affordable out there from all of the big companies, they're all made overseas in Asia. And they're all made, and there's only a couple factories that make all the guitars for all the companies. My guitars are made in the same factories that make a lot of big name brands, and that's it. And Our thing is that we sell mail order. It's mail order only. They're not in any stores, no middleman. And that's how we're really able to sell these guitars at such a great price. We have a $359 version, which is the showroom series and the vintage series, the Strats. And then we have, the vintage series are the ones that have the hand relict,
Right.
which are really, really cool. And those are $379.
And Steve does all of the relicking.
Yeah.
No, get out.
Wish.
I know. But so you're basically, your deal is like, guitar, so you knew like what it has to be. I mean,
Yeah.
your name's on it, right? I mean, all bullshit aside, it can't be like, you can't be letting shit fly, right?
No, I mean, the whole deal was what I said to Jay right in the beginning was the only way I'm going to do this is if these guitars are good enough for me to play out on tour, whether it's with Trixter, with Def Leppard, or whoever else that I play with, that these are going to be my guitars that I play. Because I wouldn't go out, there's a lot of guys who have signature guitars and they don't even play them. Or they play a highly modified version, the ones where, the people get, the punter models, but I play the one that was handmade by the custom shop guru. No, these are 100% what I play live, no modifications. The only thing that I do on my guitars, I don't like floating vibratos, floating Floyds. So I put a trem blocker, I put an FU tone trem blocker on it, and that's it. It's the same pickups. It's the same everything. And I've been using these guitars, kicking the shit out of them for the last year all around America and all around the world.
Now you'll note, Dave,
What?
Yeah.
that he blocks his Floyds.
I know. And then I was like, I'm going to block my.
We've argued a lot about this.
We disagree on very few things in life, but that's really the sticking point, I think.
I block. He doesn't.
I just let it. I'm free.
Did you always block, or when you back in the day, did you?
No, always blocked. When I got my first real shred guitar was remember back in the 80s when you had to, it was a Charvel, the San Dimas, the custom, they were handmade at that point, 1985. I bought it from Sam Ash and it took 8 months to come in.
Whoa.
And so it was blocked, and it was blocked. Actually, they used wood, which was really cool. They had 2 pieces of wood that were glued together in the back. And I've always been like that. I was never one of these guys. And more than anything, it was because I would run around and jump so much. So any of the guitars that I did have floating, it would be like, it was going out of tune all the time. And so it just didn't work for me. But, I've used a couple guitars and I get it, especially like it's really cool with clean tones, especially like if you want to mimic some of the 80s stuff, especially like the Hysteria stuff, those guys were using Kahlers. So you can really get a nice, a nice jangly tone and put that in, get that 80s wang bar.
Remember how I was saying you couldn't get the Hysteria sound without a Kahler? I said that a couple episodes ago.
Yep.
Really?
I think it's true. Don't you? That it that the Kahler formed the sound of that record? Because Steve had one?
A lot of it would be, the Kahler and the Rockman, the Rockman unit. That's what it was. The only other thing Phil used on that record and Steve Clark used on that record, they used a Randall single 12 combo amp, like solid state, which I got one after, when we were doing the first Trixter record, and I used that as well, and it sounded killer. The Randall stuff was really good. Def Leppard and Trixter were both endorsed with Randall back in the late 80s and early 90s. But the Kahler was neat, and I remember when I went over to Phil's place after we did Wembley in 2014, I went to Phil's apartment in Holland Park and played the Black Destroyer with the Kahler on it.
You played it.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
What are you doing next?
Thursday, I fly out to Minnesota for a couple Trixter shows.
Nice.
Celebrate my 54th birthday. Ouch!
Whoa.
Don't remind me.
So you do in Trixter now. You cover all the vocals. You're the dude, like you're in the front.
I do. Yeah, we're out doing this now. It's PJ Farley and myself, and our buddy Ben Hands is playing drums, and we're doing a trio. Sadly, as we get older, you get guys who can't do it anymore, won't do it anymore, don't want to follow the rules, if you will.
Or in my
You know.
case, shouldn't do it anymore.
And that too. There's a lot. Oh man, there are a lot of those. Let's not even get into that. But it's been great, man. We started about 3 years ago doing this Trixter acoustic thing, and then in January, our good friend Chris Jericho was like, "Yeah, I want you on my cruise to do the Trixter thing, but I don't want acoustic. You guys got to play electric." And that was it. And I was like, I said to PJ, I said, "You know what? We got to do this from now on." You know, so we've been doing it, and we just did a 3.5 week tour with Enough's Enough, Pretty Boy Floyd, and Band Inc. around the country, and
Nice.
it went over great, and we had a great time, and we kicked ass. More importantly, no backing tracks, no tomfoolery, if you will, and all real playing, real vocals, and it's been awesome.
Thank you so much, dude, and thank you for rescheduling and for being part of the Nothing But a Good Time book before we had a deal or anything.
Of course.
Yeah.
You know, and being part of this podcast while it doesn't exist.
I love, hey man, that's what we're all helping each other out here. So that's what it's all about. And I'm just so happy to be a part of it.